Good evening. Welcome to the world tonight. I'm Peter. Adam is off tonight. He is not feeling well. Hope to have him back here next week. But in his presence, I will be manning the show solo tonight and hope to enlighten you all with my usual charm of what I can provide to you as the host. But anyway, moving on to our first topic of the day, and that is the Italian government formation that is occurring this week. Outgoing Prime Minister Prime Minister Conte resigned this week due to not having the sufficient number of votes in either the Chamber of Deputies or the Senate to continue his government as he saw fit. He resigned and sent his commission to the President of Italy, Sergio Mattarella. Mr. Mattarella then asked Fico, the President of the Chamber of the Chamber of the Deputies, to form a government. He was unsuccessful, and now he is given the job of forming a government to Mario Draghi. Mario Draghi, for those who may not have never heard the name, is the former president of the Euro Central Bank. Mr. Draghi is more or less known for the man who led the bank through the Greek bailout crisis and other European debt crises of the early 2010s. He is seen as the man who helped stabilize the euro from collapse. Mr. Draghi, of course, would lead a technocratic government of national unity. This would be Italy's first technocratic government since 2013. And the hope of this technocratic government would be to last the final year of this parliamentary term for elections that are supposed to be scheduled next spring. Of course, this is Mr. Draghi would have the support right now, currently has the support of the the outgoing Prime Minister Conte. With this support, he's trying to seek other parties of both the current government and the opposition to support his mandate as Prime Minister. Currently, most of the Social Democratic Party, which was a large component of the previous coalition, has so far said it will support Mr. Draghi should he be able to form a government. The Five Star Movement, which was the largest party of the previous coalition, is currently divided on said issue. Half of the Five Star Movement does not want to go into a government of technocratic unity. They want to just fight on and try to form their own version of a government. But another half wants to form a technocratic government and wants to delay elections as much as they can. Of course, this is mostly in regards to the fact that their polling has been dreadful since they've entered government. The Five Star Movement is polling in the teens, and if there were an election today, would lose a good chunk of their caucus. Now, for the right, the center, the right of coalition, the Fathers of Brotherhood Party of Italy, which has seen a big rise in the polls, has currently said it will not support the government of technocratic unity. It says that there should be elections right away for the Italian people to determine who should lead Italy. Italy, of course, has a very strict timeline of when elections can happen. Elections can only happen in the spring or summertime. They cannot occur in the fall. Therefore, it is very stressful in the fact that Italy is about to get another government. This would be the, I believe, fourth Italian government in the last 5 years, which is to say something about Italy's, fun, governing nature. But Mr. Draghi now needs to win the support of Lega North or Forza Italia, both of which have not signified any position of where they're at in terms of supporting this government of technocratic unity. Of course, a support of this technocratic government from either one of those two, specifically Lega, would provide a massive boost to get this government through. Lega North's leader, Matteo Salvini, has wanted to go to elections, but now faces the very harsh decision of whether does he continue to give this government some breathing room or does he try to bring it down. Of course, Lega North is also divided. Many in Lega North's business wing want to have a continuity government to stop the bleeding that is occurring because of the coronavirus and other financial issues that Italy currently has. And Mr. Salvini has become increasingly isolated with certain parts of his party due to other factors of power grabbing and regionalization. Of course, any result in it, any government in Italy is not expected to last long, and election polling currently would have Lega North, and the Brotherhood Fathers of Brotherhood Party of Italy winning decisively and just being short of majority combined. And if you add their other partner, Forza Italia, they'd have a government. So they are very much incentivized to go to an election because they'd probably win, but they also face the dangerous scenario of overplaying their hands. Why does this matter? This matters greatly for Italy, as it is, again, in the midst of the coronavirus and very weak financial dealings, and it needs some continuity. The Conte government had already been running into issues of stability since 2019, as it already had run into trouble balancing numerous forces. And Mr. Conte was popular because he was not seen as anyone's party's man, and he had that streak of independence. Now Mr. Conte is more likely gone. Mr. Dringhelli has to find the numbers. So far, there hasn't been nothing agreed to. He has another week to do this. By next week, we should have a good indication of whether he can be able to do so or not. He's widely praised as the right man for the job, even in the wrong times. And, of course, if he does form a government, he will have a lot of challenges, but it will be of an interesting pursuit. Of course, Italy has had technocratic governments before. As noted, Italy has had 67 governments since the end of the Second World War. So it will be fascinating to see. Of course, this is usually when I would hand off to Adam, but of course he's not here tonight. So it'll be fascinating to see if Italy does this, if it is does form a government. If it doesn't, heading to elections, what the political consequences will be in that scenario. And what the Italian people see of this. The Italian people are not very fond of the fact that they have to lose another government. Many Italians were distraught at the fact that the politicians decided to tank the last government. In particular, Mr. Renzi, who was the previous prime minister of Italy, who decided to tank the previous government because he wasn't getting a bigger input on the coronavirus decisions. So this will be very interesting to see what exactly leads to the point of Italy's government, and whatever happens here at Elections Daily, we will cover that. Now, we just mentioned Italy, a very important subject of what is occurring, but we'll now move to the next major story of the week, and that is the coup or change of guard in Myanmar. Myanmar this week had a military coup that took out the government there. This is the democratic government, though, again, we should note that democratic in Myanmar is probably a stretch. Government that has been in place since 2014. This government was mostly led by Aung San Suu Kyi, who is the former Nobel Peace Prize winner who was held captive. And this is a very important this event in terms of what this means. Now, the military in Burma, Myanmar, whatever you want to call it, has been in control for the most part of the last 30 years. In 2014, they gave off control to Mrs. Sek, who, of course, was a Nobel Prize winner, who ran Aung San Suu Kyi, I should say. My apologies. Nobel Prize winner who was the state councilor of Myanmar. Of course, she wasn't eligible to be president due to the prior convention. But she, reason why this coup happened was that the military, in their eyes, saw the last election as fraudulent. Now, what caused this allegation? Well, this allegation was caused by the fact that the last election, Mrs. Aung San Suu Kyi party won over 70% of the seats available. The military itself did not do very well as in the elections as they would hope to. Now, why is this the case? Now, the military still sees their fact is the fact that they should have a rule. And the military lost a large amount of seats, and hence their influence was very reduced. And this, of course, threatened the military's grip. Now, of course, Myanmar has been in very hot water internationally for its genocide of the Rohingyas, which both sides here in this situation have green-lighted in many different ways. Mrs. Singh Kai's party has denied there is any genocide, though they have looked the other way when evidence has been presented. And the military, in many cases, has very much green-lighted the ability to kill. This, of course, has a strategic influence in Asia, as Burma is very much near India and China, and in this regard is strategically important for what the region may or may not do. In this situation, of course, the changing of government may not be really that impactful, in the sense that many of what the previous government, led by Sang Soo's party, really didn't have a big difference for the military. I mean, the military will still continue a lot of the policies they did. It just will be under different management, to say the least. And there already were really the rights in Burma that were agreed to almost a decade ago were already kind of dwindling away. And they're really, and I know we don't want to start, delegitimizing or not caring about this change, because democracy is important, but this isn't really a big shift in regards to the fact that because there has not been that real democratic element in Myanmar since the handover of power 11 years ago to a fully fledged democratic state. Now, of course, you may ask, what is the international reaction to this? The international reaction is the United States condemned this a coup. Of course, the United States still has sanctions on the military and the previous government for their roles in the Rohingya genocide. It is a genocide. And this, of course, has not led Washington to many other place of confidence with the new military regime. Of course, Burma has, or Myanmar, you may find that I may say it twice, it is not very much a state that gives Washington confidence. In terms of China, China has had meh relations with the previous government, so they will look to try to capitalize with the military, with the military likely not having a ally in the U.S. But this will also be important in the fact that this now puts a situation on the people of Myanmar. People there allegedly did vote decisively for the previous government, and now that vote has been basically canceled. And now how do they react to that? And the military has very much run a tight ship there as long as they've run the country. So it will be very critical and important to see how this is run and viewed. And Burma's situation here in a region that doesn't have a lot of stability or democracy is critical to see how regional stability can work. Of course, whatever occurs, we will cover it here. And the dangerous situation is that the military likely will not give power back and will probably continue what was the previous system of oppressive rule. Of course, the democratic system failed in Myanmar a long time ago, and unfortunately, in the case of the Rohingya, the genocide will likely continue, probably in a worse sense, with no accountability whatsoever, more behind military's closed doors. Moving on to nearby neighbor of Myanmar, that is India. India has been in very much turmoil this week over the farming protests. India's government a few months ago passed a bill changing how they did farming. Farmers for decades in India have had rights over their crops and very much a say over their selling at marketplace and control over the markets. Of course, this has been criticized of the fact that this would end government set pricing and set this right to private enterprises to set the pricing of Indian goods. This has led to weeks of protests by farmer unions and now international condemnation from celebrity groups such as Rihanna and Greta Thunberg. Very much not a thing. Of course, Greta Thunberg's tweet about Indian farmers has won her criticism in the streets of New Delhi and other places, with effigies burning of her. Must be a beautiful day there. But the key is that the police have been cracking down hard on this, and there have been criticisms of India's human rights capabilities in this situation. The current government of Prime Minister Modi is not backing down. They believe this should have been done a long time ago in terms of the market reforms with farmers. And their government has said time and time again, they will not back down. This will become a full-fledged law, and they intend for India's farmers to be on the competitive private market. Of course, India's farmers do not like this because this removes the ability they have to pressure governments to set favorable pricing towards them, because now Indian farmers will be competing with farmers in the US, Europe, and other parts of Asia, which Indian farmers may very much, not have a less use of regulation, but they do not at times not are not in the same ball league as farmers in the US and in Europe because they do not have the resources to grow massive crops in the most efficient ways. And their argument is we will never beat the farmers in the West because they, by default, have better materials, the pesticides, whatever you want to name, compared to ours. Of course, this has now led into a very big, row in India over this. And whatever occurs in this situation is extremely important because of the fact that this now has a huge say over the fact of where India is heading as an economy. India's government of Modi, for the last, I believe, 6 years they've been in power, 7, has very much pushed this, neoliberalization of the economy to open India's markets up to foreign goods, but also maintaining strict security. We've seen India go heavily after Chinese products to maintain its stability in the market of Indian farmers and of Indian technology. Apologies, words are mixing up in my scrambles here. But you see the key element here that's at play. The Indian farmers think that they're losing their competitive power within their government, and they are trying to maintain it. Losing that grip means India's farmers no longer have their powerful lobby, which they've had since the creation of India as an independent state. And this would mean India would push more and more into Modi's and the BJP's dream of a more economically advanced India that's beginning to set itself as a foot of power in Southeast Asia. Again, if you have any more interested in this, we'll cover this more in depth on next week's episode with Adam, who it's a shame. Again, it's great to have a great co-host who provides so much help on these subjects, so you don't have to hear me ramble. But then, moving on to Uganda. Uganda, of course, we've mentioned here numerous times, has had an election. The president of Uganda, Yoweri Museveni, won with 58% of the vote. However, Robert Kungai, the opposition candidate, Bobby Wine, as known as by his stage name, says this vote was corrupt by harassment of his supporters and ballot box stuffing. Several opposition candidates do agree with this assessment and are calling for national defiance of this result and are calling for a revote of this. Now, of course, we have mentioned, Uganda, very much in a region that has had very much hot waters over election results and other stability concerns. And of course, the other issue at play with Bobby Wine is that security forces harassing him back during the campaign and surveillance of his campaign by government forces and supporters of the president. This, of course, led to very much concerns from his camp that this was being prepared for rigging. Now, so far, the international reaction has been to support Mr. Wine's position. Senator Bob Menendez, who is the chair of the Senate Foreign Affairs Committee, and ranking member Jim Resch, the Republican on the committee, have both agreed that this is a serious issue and that there should be punishments if this is proven to have fraud. This is very important because the U.S. recently, in many African situations, it's like Ethiopia and other places, has looked the other way. This was one thing that the previous Trump administration was not very interested in, with African policy, per se. So it'll be interesting to see what the new Biden administration has in this regard, whether they take a more active interest into African affairs, and if that is the case, whether or not this has an impact on what happens with Uganda. The current Ugandan president says he won fair and square, and that Bobby Wine should concede and move on for the sake of the people of Uganda. Mr. Wine, of course, believes that's hogwash and wants protest. Of course, there's a lot to say about the environment here, and this government has tried to silence the opposition because it wants control over a time where Uganda has not done very well with the coronavirus and still has many economic, structural problems. And this has become a generational thing. The youth of Uganda, very much the younger ones who do not agree with, the position of Mr. Museveni, who has been in power since the 1980s, once seen as a reformer that's long died. Uganda is one of the youngest countries in the world with a median age of less than 16. Yes, less than 16. So for many young Ugandans, this is their chance to be able to seek some change in the democratic process. Of course, This is to say that the current President Museveni does not, none of his supporters, he claims that he has improved the country and that the GDP growth has grown by 6.7%. Of course, this is, his supporters believe that, this was done fair and square, and he has given the people of Uganda a good deal. And there have been very much a view that he is grooming his son, a commander of the country's special forces, to succeed him. But this is going to be a very big fight over the issue of whether this was rigged or not, and this will come down to international pressure and whether the Ugandan government, if they did do this, is willing to take accountability for this. Of course, Bobby Wine has already had a long saga with this, and with getting the votes he has and a right majority, an okay, decent representation in the chambers of the legislative body, there will be a trying effect to make the Ugandan presidency life a little miserable to get this change. Of course, the Ugandan government believes that foreign outside sources are trying to change the result of this election. Of course, that is again a claim that is wildly to be said. But again, if you've seen in the Central African Republic, the Russians will get involved, the Americans will get involved in other places. So it will be a very interesting effect of what occurs with this situation in Uganda. So because this week is a shorter episode and the fact that there is no other co-host, we have now arrived at the loser of the week. Yes, it is a short week, but that is to be a case. Now, the loser of the week tends to be a fun time where people can enjoy stupidity and whatnot. So my loser of the week, and a very fun and probably dumb-hearted thing to say on Hot Mic, is that Tokyo's Olympics chief was caught on camera saying women talk too much and complain. Yes, that's right, ladies and gentlemen. The Olympics chief, Mr. Yoshiri Mori, decided to make some lovely quotes, and I quote, "Women have a strong sense of rivalry. If one raises her hand to speak, all the others feel the need to speak, too. Everyone ends up saying something." And he basically went on to say that women just don't understand their places when talking. Of course, this is one backlash in Japan and the West, as in Japan, women are still trying to get that equal ladder with male counterparts. The director of the Japanese Olympic Committee very much criticized those statements about women, and several government ministers have also criticized the comments here. Again, the Olympics minister, who is already under a lot of pressure to deliver an Olympics game, is now caught on hot water saying questionable things. Very much the loser of the week. Again, not the greatest thing to say. I mean, in regards to that, since I also have extended a little more time, my runner-up loser of the week may very well be the Germans. The German Health Minister Jens Spahn, who was very much seen as a candidate for the CDU's chancellorship a few weeks ago, with a more successful handling of the corona outbreak, he has also fallen from grace, now criticized from his own party supporters to others across the EU as being the main issue why Germany didn't go ahead with a faster rollout plan within the EU. And this criticism is that, to quote the finance minister Olaf Scholz, it's been, full the adjective with the S word, like that. And that is, again, loser of the week, because he went and briefed against the AstraZeneca vaccine, saying it was only effective on 8% of people. That was thrown out and said that was wrong. And now Mr. Jens Spahn has gone from being the knight at the top of the ladder to very much now having to answer questions about incompetence. So we've reached the end of the show. It's a short show this week, one-person show. Adam is recovering from being a little sick this week. I hope he recovers and he joins us next week. Again, thank you all for watching The World Tonight, more of an abbreviated version. If you'd like to follow our content, follow us on Twitter. And if you missed a show, previous ones, go through our podcast, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, whatever podcast service you use, and you can find us and free of charge and listen to us discuss the world. Anyway, folks, thank you as always for letting us be in your homes. Have a great week. See you next week, and take care.